lot of people said, I read Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it opened their eyes and stuff like that, and everything clicked into place. I read the book too. It was great, but I could not picture in my head how to do it. I was not mentally prepared for this. I was too much into corporate culture. I'm thinking of bonuses or thinking of winter vacations without thinking any day can be a vacation. I don't have to wait till winter. I don't have to wait for bonus time to get a bonus. I can get bonus at any time.
In this episode, I talk with Vlad Arakcheyev. Vlad is a realtor and an active investor in over 500 multifamily units and land development. We have a really interesting conversation on how he started investing part-time, and then how he finally got the nerve to go full-time in real estate and quit his former job. We talk about his first real estate deal, is going from single family to multifamily, what his first multifamily deals looked like. I hope you enjoy. Now on to the show. How you doing, Vlad?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I know we spoke a few weeks ago and about you on the podcast. Look forward to having a good conversation. And so you're in real estate developer. You got your real estate license, also in land development, multifamily investing, and we'll get to that. Definitely have some questions that I know folks listening they'll want to hear. But before we get there, you weren't always a real estate investor. You actually worked in corporate America. So what were you doing before all this real estate came into play?
Yeah, completely crazy. You're ready for this? You'll never guess. I was a graphic designer.
All right.
Completely unrelated to real estate. In fact, I'll give you this. Before I started in real estate, I didn't know anything about it. The only thing I've done in real estate is buy my house off an MLS with a real estate agent, and that's it.
So completely green. You're in graphic design, and you've been doing that, for an extended part of your corporate career, right?
Yeah, all my life. Yeah, I worked in an advertising agency, and then we did like large format printing, which is like billboards that you see on the side of the highway. I did cosmetics, you name it, and I've done it over a 15-year career, actually even longer.
So what made you decide to think about real estate? And when you thought about real estate, was it more on the passive side, or was it jumping in the trenches and going out taking down your own deals?
Yeah, it's actually I have to give all the credit to my wife. What happened is COVID hit and I got furloughed because it's a non-essential business. So didn't know when my next paycheck was coming from or when. Got unemployment, obviously, but I didn't know if I was going to be called back. And I got a house, 2 kids, 3 cats, got to feed those cats, right? And my wife said, hey, listen, why don't you try being an agent? Just a regular realtor here in Jersey. People need housing, right? So that's extra income. So my personality is very green. I didn't know anything. I don't like to make myself uncomfortable. Let's just say that. And I told her no for a long time. And then she goes, well, did you hear about the tax benefits that come with real estate? And that caught my ear immediately. And I'm like, okay, let's explore this now. And even though I got recalled back, I started studying at night, got my real estate license, and started flipping and wholesaling straight after that, because I went to local meetups and I thought I was the coolest, right? I'm the real estate agent.
Yeah.
And people like, nah, come on, you can do this thing called wholesaling and flipping. And I'm like, what is that again? And that's how my investing kind of got started in single family space.
So before your real estate license, you had zero real estate experience? Is
None
that right?
whatsoever. I didn't even know how to read or fill out a contract.
Awesome. So you get your real estate license, and it's essentially an immediate opening into the investor world, as opposed to going out there being a production agent working with traditional buyers and sellers. Does that sound right?
Yeah. What I've done is I started going to these meetups around New Jersey, and I'm thinking there's got to be something else. And also my initial thought was, let me find some clients. But all these clients were looking at flips and something that's really beat up. And I
Mhm.
thought I was going to sell beautiful luxury apartments and houses. Well, so I tried and joined them, right? Being a realtor, have access to the MLS. Now I'm flipping and wholesaling a little bit on the side, always partnering up. But shortly after realized it's got to be something else. We have to do something. So passive income, that's where the money is. That's where everything is. True wealth, right? Freedom of time. So we got a rental, single house, single family rental in South Jersey, and it was great. It was going fine. We were netting $1,000 a month. So it really, really good buy. And but still not enough because I would say 8 months has passed, and I'm like, we need something else. Because if you stop producing, if you stop reaching out, everything dries up, right? Your flips stop, your wholesaling, everything kind of collapses. So we were looking at to grow more. And ultimately, we're thinking, well, we can buy some duplexes, maybe a quad or something like that. And then somebody said, well, what's stopping you from going like big, large multifamily, commercial? And we're like, well, we don't know anybody and we don't know how to start. And they're like, well, how about mentoring? How about education? How about being in a space where large multifamily investors and buyers are? So we got tickets to Houston, Texas to go to a huge multifamily event. I was really skeptical, spending $1,000 on a ticket, flights, hotels. I was bummed actually. I'm like, what are we doing? This is horrible. On the flight over, on the way back, I was so pumped I couldn't sleep. I'm like, that's it. We need mentoring. We need to get some sort of educational. We need connections. What do we need here to get into multifamily space? I don't want to do single family whatsoever. Forget about flips and wholesaling.
And
So
what
my
event was
eyes
that?
really open. Huh?
What event? What do you recall the event?
Yeah, it was MFIN, Multifamily Investors Nation in Houston, Texas.
Okay, so I was at that was 21 or
Yeah,
22.
21.
Trying to remember. I don't think I was at that event. I think it was in the 22.
Yeah,
I think I had a conflict in 21, but yeah, I know the event you're talking about, and it's powerful. I
it
know
is.
I know the guys that run that event, and yeah, it's a really good event for anyone who hasn't
800
been.
people. I mean, I was blown away. And you know what really struck me was the generosity of all the people there, right? They were generous with their time and they were explaining things to me. They gave me their contact information. Call me at any time. And it was true. I mean, and I'm thinking, what are they going to do with a guy like me? I have nothing to offer, absolutely nothing. And one guy goes, hey, listen, we were in the same shoes like you 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever. So we know as long as you work hard, you put your head down, you focus, you will be exactly where we are in even higher. So I'm like, wow, this is so generous. And that's how my career got started. As soon as we got back home, we started interviewing mentors. And we called everybody, spoke with everybody. We joined Jake and Gino. It's a large multifamily
Yep.
mastermind, and took off running ever since. We identified our markets, which is Houston, Dallas, in my case, Kansas City as well. And we purchased some stuff in the Carolinas also. So these are the three markets that we are targeting, only multifamily. And yeah, it's been very exciting.
Yeah. I know Jake and Gino. I'm not a part of their community or really any mastermind, but I know them. I've actually had Gino on the podcast, so I really like those guys and what they stand for. And I do know a few folks like you who are in the community and had good things to say about them. But backing up, so you get your real estate license. Very quickly, you realize where you need to be, which is multifamily. But in that interim, did you do any wholesale or flip deals? I know you
I've
had the
done,
rental.
yeah, I've done a few. I've
Okay.
done a few, and I
And
didn't like them.
yeah, so you didn't like them, and for what reason did you not like them?
You know what? Number one, it was oversaturated. That's number one, and I'm not really afraid of that. But what was everybody was it was no consistency. because one person said, "Oh, by the way, it's not legal." And then my broker was saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do this." And then another person said, "Oh, we should do this." And what really opened my eyes was I actually got a house on the contract. And then somebody else cut me, undercut me, went directly to the seller and offered him $5,000 more. And of course, the seller signed another contract with that other
Yeah.
person. And additionally, and I'm like, how can this possible? But now I know you can cloud the title and,
It's a
do all
dirty
kinds of
business.
stuff like that. Yeah. And additionally, what really struck me was crazy, daisy chaining. And now I was like, you can't be serious. So I got a house on the contract. I thought the person was an end buyer, but they weren't. They were another wholesaler. So they got a contract with me. So I'm with the buyer, another person with me, and they would be on the contract with the wholesale with the end with
Yeah.
the
So you
end
get
buyer.
you have it under contract directly with the owner.
Yeah,
You're wholesaling this contract
yeah,
with someone who you think is an end buyer.
yeah.
They sign with you and they're out shopping your deal.
Exactly. And you know what's really crazy? After one day, I saw my deal shopped around on Facebook, and I go, hold on a second, is that my deal? And I'm like, and I texted the guy, and I'm like, what are you doing? It's my deal. He was like, well, we're on the contract. I can do whatever I want. I'm like, oh boy,
Did they
here we
put
go.
down earnest money?
No, no, I
Yeah.
didn't
So
know
I
any
always tell
better.
folks like the
Yeah,
surest way to, and there's nothing wrong with daisy chaining if they're transparent. The problem
yeah,
is they typically aren't.
yeah,
So if they're going to tell you, hey, look, I've got a huge buyer list and I guarantee you, like, I've got buyers that can do this and blah, 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 that's fine. But, and this is where you can really get them on the hook or scare scare the bottom feeders away.
yeah.
Earnest money. Like,
Earnest
sure,
money,
great.
yeah.
You can get a good buyer, $5,000 non-refundable earnest money. You want an
Yeah,
option period? Or if you give an option period, yeah, 24 hours.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that before. And that was my first two deals. And I was really bummed. And I'm like, I know people do it. I know they find deals. You know what's funny? I use wholesalers now myself for multifamily deals, land deals that I do and I look for. So I use them myself, but now I know
Yeah.
what to look for and how the whole system works. But it was just not for me. My ultimate thing was freedom of time, which is true wealth in my opinion.
Yeah.
So and where can I get that? Which is passive income. And that's
Correct.
why
Correct.
I moved.
Yeah. Which is like, so flipping, wholesaling, great ways to make money. Traditional agent working for commission, great way to make money.
Still do.
So is being a graphics designer. That's a good way to make money, but they're all jobs.
Yeah.
And the moment you stop those activities, the income stops too.
Yeah.
And now with a little caveat, if you're part of the top 1%, like, and ridiculously few people will ever do this. If you're able to build a machine that's well run enough and large enough to afford like a COO or a CEO where they can run it, and now you can step out of that seat and be an owner, then it can become passive. But I can only point to, and I've been doing this a long time, I can only point to a couple people who, at least from the outside looking in and also personal conversations, have been able to do that. It's ridiculously few. Most people just become, in the cash flow quadrant, which I ported, they become an S.
Yeah.
That they're self-employed and they've got a high-paying job,
Yeah.
but they're not
And
investors.
especially now, if you look at this market cycle, right? When everything was going up, it was much easier. It was a lot of movement around wholesaling and flipping. And now all my friends, like I know a few of them actually, they just sitting without any deals because you have prices of housing really, and the insurance, I mean the rates and everything just completely reversed. So what happened is people are still looking for them, but they need to get them at better prices,
Yeah.
right? They can't do that. They can't rely on the
It's the
market.
bid ask gap. Sellers wanting yesterday's price, buyers wanting today's value.
Oh yeah.
And it's just it's going to take time to close. unless something else changes, like interest rates were to fall back down, unlikely.
Yeah, and
So
cost of materials went up as well. I mean, that
materials,
huge
labor,
is a huge factor. So,
yeah.
yeah, but it's definitely interesting. It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot of um, lessons on how to protect myself, how to ask the right questions. I mean, I'm not gonna consider that a bad experience. It's just something different, something not for me.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
learned. And you also learned with your single family rental. So you got a single family rental, it's cash flowing. What was the point to where, and I know you mentioned someone did plant that seed, hey, why don't you just go bigger? But was that it, or was there some other inflection point to where you're like, I don't want to grow a portfolio like 50 or 100 of these single families. I'd rather just go out and buy a multifamily. What was that decision point?
Yeah, we were thinking, and I was self-managing my rentals, and I started receiving like crazy calls. I'll never forget. Somebody calls me and he goes, "There's a raccoon on my roof. Why didn't you go like chase it away?" And I was like, "A raccoon? You live basically in the woods. I mean, it's not." Yeah, so when I started receiving these calls, it was just I it was distracting me from where I wanted to go. Additionally,
What
if
real quick, on average, what days of the week did those calls come in on?
oh boy, they were like Friday night or some Saturday or
Always
something
on
like
Friday
that.
and Saturday. And then
Yeah,
like
yeah,
on a holiday weekend,
yes.
it spikes. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
It happens all the time. It's like Friday night, all the contractors, my handyman is sleeping or somewhere away on vacation, and these calls are coming in. Oh, this is stuck, and now we have an alarm. We don't know how to shut it off, and there's a leaky toilet, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I'm like, you have four, right? So just stop using one up until Monday. I mean, I'm trying to be considerate, but at the same time, I'm thinking all these expenses are, I mean, I kind of expected them, right? I knew they're going to happen,
Yeah.
but and not at that volume. And also, if you have a person that's moving out, you have basically 2 months of vacancy. I mean, 2 months of nobody paying you, and then you have like 100% vacancy, right? For these 2 months, because you need to paint, you need to fix, then you need to find another person, and then by the time they're in, 2 months have passed.
Yep.
So it's a process.
Yeah. Which brings you mentioned $1,000 a month cash flow. Was that gross?
No, that was net.
Okay,
That was net.
so that was after factoring in for vacancy repairs, capex. Okay,
Yes.
which is really strong. Now, depending on the price point. I mean,
Yeah.
what price point was it?
We purchased it at 240,000.
Okay, yeah. So that's really strong cash flow.
Yeah.
But regardless, like most people, like you raised a lot of good points. Like you will have vacancy, you will have repairs, you will have capital expenditures. They all will happen, even if you have the best tenants that never call you, because the moment they move out, whether you need them to move out or they decide to move, you got vacancy. So it's
Yeah.
absolutely important. You've got to escrow for those expenses, because you could probably absorb one financially, but you got three or four of them and they start popping like this, like that can add up. You can find yourself in a bad situation. But you've actually decided, I don't really want to do this. There's got to be a better way.
No. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you this. The one of the houses that we purchased, pretty much the person moved in and the main sewer line got clogged
Yeah.
and sewage started coming up. And I'm like, you can't be serious. What is happening here? And then we thought we can just snake it or something like that. And apparently the roots of the trees caused the whole line to
Yep.
collapse.
Yep.
And I'm the lucky one that bought the house exactly a month before that collapsed.
Yeah.
So Roto-Rooter came over. They gave me a quote for I think like $9,000 to basically dig a whole trench through the
Yep.
front yard and redo the whole thing. So that was an extremely costly and expected expense, and we build the
I'm only
insurance.
smiling because I get those calls. We're dealing with a sewer issue right now on a single family. That's one that I really want to sell. So
Yeah,
I know that pain very well.
yeah. And I sold it. Listen, I don't mind dealing with it. The only thing is, if you're dealing with it, who's gonna look for more properties? How are you gonna grow if you are physically picking up the phone and answering calls about raccoons and cloggy
Yeah.
toilets,
Well,
right?
what made you not just turn it over to a property manager?
Um, two things. I didn't know how to build a team back then, and also I was not at that level yet, I thought. So I'm thinking I'm gonna do everything myself. I got a handyman. I'm gonna get all the calls and I'll take care of it. But ultimately, it didn't work because it was taking up my valuable time
Yeah.
instead of growing, instead of looking for more houses,
Yeah.
instead of selling houses as a realtor, right? Making more money. I was spending my time and money um, trying to fix problems at the rental property.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And we've always self-managed except for the duplex and any multifamily. But I've got an assistant team that they do all the utilities, turning on and off. They do, they take all of the basic requests and arrange for handymen and all that.
yeah,
I still approve budgets and all that. But my advice to folks that are doing that is you do have to pick one. Like it's okay to self-manage, and there's a good education in that, and it'll help you manage property manager later on whenever you want to go that
yeah,
route. But at the end of the day, if you really want to be as passive as you possibly can, like there's in most major markets, there's flat fee, like just flat fee per door property management companies that you can turn it over to. You still have to manage them though. Like
yeah,
at
you
that point,
do.
you're an asset
Yeah,
manager.
that's true. Yeah, we budgeted about 8% for property manager just in case we would get one.
Yeah, and that's really really smart. So that way, it's there. I'm gonna keep it for now, and then at later, some later time, you at least have it built into the budget that you could afford it if you need it. Now you decided to dump it, no, or not dump it. You sold it. You're moving over to multifamily, and so are you full time at this point?
Yeah, I am.
So-
I resigned in December, not this December, but last December of
Okay.
2 years ago almost.
How did you come to that decision of after so long being in corporate America, getting that steady paycheck? How did you within your family, like with your wife and those conversations, and also in your own head, be like, "This is it. I'm going. I'm jumping in the deep
Yeah,
end."
my wife was actually very encouraging and behind me 100%. I'm without her, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. But what really changed, she was like, "You got just resign." But I was afraid. It's just pure fear. And then because the fear of unknown, maybe it was just different factors. But like I mentioned, if you on a disc personality test, I'm a green, so I'm a safe person. I
Mm-hmm.
want to know where my next check is coming from. And if I resign, that means I'm like, that's it, burning the bridges,
Yep.
no more, cannot go back. And I
Well, I
always
mean,
like,
you could, but so your mentality is you couldn't.
yeah,
But in reality, you can always get another job, right?
exactly.
But that wasn't what you were wrestling with at the time.
Yeah, it was all my head. That's the biggest thing. But what really turned me over and made me change and resign, I started losing deals because 9 to 5, right? So I'm locking up a house and I'm going. I remember this conversation. It was Wednesday, so I spoke with the seller, great house, and I said, "Listen, we agreed on the price, agreed on terms, on everything." I'm like, I'm gonna stop by on Friday, check it out. We're gonna sign the contract, and that's it. And the guy was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I like your price. I like everything. All is done. No problem whatsoever." Now on Thursday, I'm calling him back just to confirm that I'm coming in on Friday, and he goes, "Somebody else just stopped in, and I signed the contract pretty much for the same price as you." And my wife liked the guy, I liked him. There was no reason to wait, and it happened 3 times. So after the third time, I'm thinking how much in potential income I lost
Yeah, you just
or
watched six
commission,
figures fly out the window because you're holding on
possibly.
to a paycheck.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it could be anything. I could have wholesaled, gotten quick 15, 10,000, or flipped it and got 50 to 80,000. Who knew? I didn't know. Lost three of those deals. And during lunch, I called my wife and I said, "Can you send me a resignation letter?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Just send me the letter." I had it within 30 seconds in my mailbox, handed it in to my supervisor. 2 weeks later, I was gone.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, it was a process. You had to get there, and
Yeah.
it just took those lessons where you saw the opportunity cost, and hey, it's like as opposed to losing something by quitting your job, you're actually losing something by not quitting. And that's where you,
Exactly. I couldn't put two and two together. And a lot of people said, I read Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it opened their eyes and stuff like that, and everything clicked into place. I read the book too. It was great, but I could not picture in my head how to do it.
Mhm.
Like, I understand what he was talking about. It's great. The vision's there. I just didn't have it. I was not mentally prepared for this. I was too much into corporate culture. I was thinking, I'm thinking of bonuses or thinking of winter vacations without thinking any day can be a vacation. I don't have to wait till winter. I don't
Yeah.
have to wait for bonus time to get a bonus. I can get bonus at any time. And additionally, what really opened my eyes is you earned your vacation, right? But you still have to go to your supervisor and say, "Can I take this vacation?"
Mhm.
And they can say, "No, it's the busy season. You cannot take it during July, for example, or during winter time because we have a rollout. So you can't take it. You have to all bunch up your vacations in November or something like that." So if you earned it, why do you have to ask people for vacations? And that really kind of clicked in. And one person said it to me. They're like, "Why do you have to ask for your vacation? You earned it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy is absolutely right. Why?" So all of these things, a combination plus losing deals, just, I was like, that's it, done.
Yeah, I think for me, I was always going to be an entrepreneur. I just had a very, I was comfortable, and the thing that gets in the way of a great life is a good life. So I had a good life. I was working from home, high paying sales job, and working from home gave me a lot of latitude, and still being able to invest in real estate. For me, it wasn't until they cut my pay in half. And at that point, it was just like, yeah, well, it's just not worth it. Well, that, and then also I had like my wife and I, we had 2 6-figure paydays with some of our investments, and so it was like, okay, 2 6-figure paydays. I lost half my income over here, and I'm like don't really need this anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, we all find the path, and I think it is very important to note that not everyone needs to quit their job or wants to or should, because not everyone is it's not in everyone's capacity to be a self-employed, to run your own business, to start your own business or whatever. Could be, and if you're younger-ish, um, it might be worth the risk because you can always go get another job. And that's ultimately what it came down to me was I knew, hey, this is a great job. I was getting good money. It was very flexible, but worst thing, I could always get another one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just I was kind of done after I saw the potential, and especially I was going to a lot of networking events here in New Jersey and also on Zoom events now. So I was on Zoom calls all the time, and all that energy got rubbed off on me from other investors, from other syndicators, from other realtors even, because I see them driving up and down the road at any time, and I'm like, well, I have to be stuck in the office. I didn't want to do that anymore
Yeah.
because I tasted it,
Yeah.
right? I saw it already, and I'm like, let
Yeah.
me try something else.
Yeah. You felt handicapped and
I
want to get free.
did, but like I said, without my wife, I wouldn't be able to do this, and her support means absolutely everything. She pushed me towards this, and I'm so glad she was persistent enough for 6 months to push me towards this thing. She tried to find my pain point. Like when you're a flipper, you're trying to find seller's pain point. It's the same thing here. And the pain point was, in my case, it was freedom of time and, of course, tax savings.
Yeah.
When I got the idea of being an active participant in a passive activity, that kind of clicked in. I started reading more about it, and everything just fallen into one bucket there from all the directions. So yeah.
And that's really important, and it shouldn't be glossed over, to have the buy-in from your spouse. And it doesn't necessarily mean your spouse has to fully support exactly what you're doing, but support your enthusiasm behind it, and at least give you the ability and the room and the flexibility to run with that and to test those ideas, those ventures, or whatever. And I think as guys, we're kind of naturally inclined to build things and to create things, and I mean, definitely ladies do that too. But so it's definitely very good that she was very supportive in you doing this specific thing. But even if your spouse is maybe a little bit more cautious, so my wife, she was a little bit more cautious. She is not entrepreneurial at all. She's very safe, very steady, comfortable. But she was willing to support me behind my ventures. And then she even went along with me. And then she realized, oh, wow, this thing actually works. And then started working in the business and whatnot. So I think that's important. So, all right, you're full-time in real estate, and you've had your taste at single family, flipping, wholesaling, single family rentals. Decide to you need to go bigger, and that's how you get into land development and multifamily, or was it first multifamily and then land development?
Yeah, multifamily. When it comes to land development, we're actually, by, I guess, accident, I should say, or lucky accident.
Okay, so you're moving in the multifamily direction at this point.
Yeah, it's all multifamily. The thing is, we were buying 7 units in Bradenton. It's outside of Sarasota. And without actually realizing, we bought 7 units, but 8 acres of land was attached to the property. And we realized the potential of it. The potential was to rezone it for multifamily and build 96 apartments. So I didn't plan or want to be in land development. And I still am not sure what's going to happen there. It's a small JV. We've done it with 5 other friends. And the value is not in apartments, it's in the land. So we can rezone, sell, or rezone, partner with a developer, or just do it ourselves. Raise enough capital, partner with a developer, build. So we're not sure what we're going to do yet. We're in the process of rezoning. It should be done by October of this year. And then we'll see how the market's going to be. And we're really not sure of the exit strategy. These are the 2 potential exits that we are considering right now.
Yeah, and that's good. You have options. So, if you were to redevelop or just develop them, that pans out, that's great. But the ability just to sell the land, since that's where a majority of the value is currently, presumably you can take that to either pay off debt or, return capital to any investors you have, like yourselves or any other investors, and use those proceeds for other opportunities. So multiple exit strategies. I love it. I tell folks like flipping too. It's like, especially in this market, like, you're going to flip, like, make sure it cash flows. If you have to keep it as a rental, ask me how I know that. I've had some flips that didn't quite sell for what I needed to, so they're rentals now. And eventually time makes those bad deals, makes them okay.
Yeah, it works out. It works out, but I strictly focus on multifamily because it's my thought. My thought is this: basic human need, right? Food, clothing, apartments. People got to live somewhere. So if they cannot buy, they have to rent. They're not going to be homeless. So I'm just providing a service here, and that's why I strictly focus on apartments. I don't want to spread myself too thin. Be very focused in one market, in one area, like in Texas, Houston and Dallas, right? I'm not going to venture out anywhere else. I buy I want to know everything in that market, everything in that area, and specific buy box. Not just jumping all over the place, but really, really focused on a particular thing, and so we can execute our plan.
Love it, love it. So tell me about your first large multifamily deal.
Yeah, somebody came over to me and they said, "How about you be an LP in the deal?" And I said, "I don't want to be an LP. I want to be a co-GP or a GP." And the conversation took like 10 minutes. Basically, the guy was trying to raise money. I didn't even know what it was at the time. He calls me back a few days later and he goes, "If you want to be a co-GP, how about you speak with the operators and try to raise capital and be investor relations on the deal? Can you do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that. Sure." So I spoke with the operators, with the main team, and we liked each other. And they go, "Well, how much can you raise?" And I said, "Oh, it's easy, 500,000." And they're like, "Well, you know what? How about you try for 200? And if you raise anything higher than that, it's all a bonus." So I'm like, "Okay, sure." It was 506C. It was 208 doors in San Antonio. I was very excited. I didn't know exactly the process, but I knew I could advertise, and that's what I was doing. I was going on Facebook, on LinkedIn, everywhere, and I was advertising this deal. I was going on networking events, on Zoom calls, and but and I had nobody interested. Maybe, and I know now why, but at the time I didn't. And I'm like, "But the deal is so good. How come nobody's like jumping all over it?" And somebody said, "Well, why don't you try your friends and family?" Not a single of my friend invested in this deal. Not a single person. And I know them for 30 years, and they have money. And I realized that they're not investing in the deal, they're investing in you. So they just didn't believe you that you could execute this, that you're the new guy. Maybe you're too desperate. So combination of those things turned off investors. But on one of the calls, I saw one person who needed to do a 1031 exchange. And I contacted him directly and I said, "Hey, listen, we have this deal. We accept 1031s. Would you like to take a look at it?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." So long story short, he had $1 million 1031 and he took the deal.
Oh,
And
wow.
so with one person, I managed to raise $1 million with the 1031.
Nice.
So yeah, it was completely crazy. I wasn't even sure how the whole thing works. Of course, I was reading about it, educating myself like crazy, because I'm educating myself on JVs and how the structure is, but specifics of 1031 and how it's transferred and the
Yeah.
whole tenants and common structure, it's more involved. You have attorneys involved, and I told everybody, "Listen, I want to be on all the calls, not because I'm a control freak or anything like that. I want to learn.
Yep.
Please include me. I'll be like a fly on the wall. You're not going to hear from me. I'm just going to learn." And that's how my first syndication was. I consider that a success up until, you ready for this? 2 weeks before closing, and it happened last September, the bank pulled out of the deal.
Oh, damn.
Yep. And I was already counting my money. I was super pumped. Bank
Which
pulled
is
out of
not
the
really has not been uncommon, unfortunately, over the last 6-9 months or so with the rising interest rates. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the rates started shooting up by 75 basis points every month. Bank got cold feet, pulled out of the deal. We got another lender. We couldn't get the same rate because the rates obviously jumped up. We couldn't target the same returns to the investors. The deal fell through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my very first deal, very first syndication. And even though some people might consider it a failure, I don't. It was a huge learning opportunity. I know how everything is structured. I learned so much because of this. Because, when we fail, we learn. When we make mistakes, we learn as much as possible. So I started taking classes, educating myself. I mean, the deal was great. The returns were great. Completely not our fault. all the money got returned back to the investors. Nobody lost a single penny. We were very happy about that. Obviously, I mean, we couldn't negotiate with the lender. We couldn't do anything,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But after that deal, everything started snowballing in a positive direction. So after that deal, we were just, super excited of what's going to happen after that.
Were you able to do any get that investor in any other opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We got that investor into another opportunity in Dallas.
Yeah.
So
It just shows you like
it's a
when you
win-win.
keep chipping away, like one person, one event, one act, just one thing can totally start tipping the dominoes and tipping everything's in your direction. It's just don't quit. You're 3 feet. A lot of people know the story about 3 feet from gold. You're 3 feet from gold, so keep digging. So had you stopped and gotten frustrated, you may not have ever got connected with that one investor. Which that one investor was a lot of. One, they had something that operators needed, and that was something how you could make a connection, plus adding other value to like investor relations and asset management and whatnot to operators to help them take down a deal. And just quick disclosure, like this is where SEC attorneys come in. Like talk with them, make sure like there's definitely rules on raising money, what you can do, what you can't do, depending on the type of the deal, and 506B, 506C, is it JV and broker dealer, RIA, and all that stuff. So very complicated. Talk with attorneys so you don't get in trouble. But anyway, first deal, it wasn't a failure. You learned a lot. You just didn't get the deal.
Yeah.
But you do go on and successfully close other deals with other operators.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Then we started everybody. I mean, people noticed us. So noticed me. I was all over social media, and they started educating myself and growing my brand. So after that deal in Sarasota, we closed that, and immediately after, I went direct to seller in Kansas City and found 40 units, and that's a JV as well. So we got that deal closed. And that deal comes with land also, which is zoned for multifamily, with approximately 3 acres of land, if I'm not mistaken. It was 40 doors. Shortly after, I started working on another syndication, which is 419 doors in Northeast Dallas, with an experienced team also who I met through my network and Jake and Gino community. Closed that. And so I got both sides here, JVs on small deals, syndications on large, and of course, learning from a more experienced team that's been in the game for years, that went full cycle so many times. I was just so pumped to be given this opportunity. And after that, two more deals in the Carolinas, the JVs also. One is student housing and one is built to rent. We're actually trying out something new now. So we got 19 brand new single family houses. We bought a whole block in Boone, North Carolina, and they're all long-term rentals. But two of them we try and go for midterm rental to cater to traveling nurses.
Yeah.
Because there is a hospital literally 5 miles away from the property. So we thinking of converting them into midterm rentals and seeing how that's going to work. Ask me in a year. I don't know anything. We just in
It's a
talks.
buzzword. This whole midterm rental. I don't know if I'm sure it's always been there, but I heard it a couple months ago. I hear it all over the place now. So I don't know if it's just like having a viral effect in the investor community, but it has its place. This is your corporate leases, your traveling nurses, which we get with our short term rental. We'll just get nurses that'll book 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, which is much longer than your typical 3 to 5 or 7 night short term rental vacationer. So interesting, awesome.
Yeah, so it's after the first deal that might be considered, a failure, but not to me. This happened for me, I believe, not to me, and it really accelerated everything
Well,
after
really,
that.
what you got
Yeah.
is prior to that, you had theory. Like you knew people were doing it, but it's still to you it was theory.
Yeah.
Now you're in the mix and everything is real. It
Mhm.
didn't make it across the finish line, but everything was real. Like
Yeah.
the actual raising money, the syndication or the entity documents, working with the attorneys, the insurance, the bank and the sellers and all this stuff. All this is real. You just unfortunately hit a roadblock.
Yeah.
But the education that you got from that, probably, this is just my theory here, gave you the confidence to go on and be more successful in the next deal. So as you're talking with prospective investors or operators, you have a certain tone in your voice that is going to be translated when you're talking with folks. It could be the same words, but that confidence really,
Yeah.
people pick up on it.
They sure do. Yeah, without a question, because you already know what you should be looking for, what to be asking, what, you even know the objections that you might be getting, and you kind of just address them before they even arise. So it comes with experience, and I'll give you another one. I was speaking with brokers, and this is funny. So I'm trying to speak with brokers. So instead of calling Texas and speaking with Texas brokers, I just got brokers from Oklahoma and called them. And people like, why? Well, because I didn't know how to speak with brokers. And I don't care if I crash and burn in Oklahoma because it's not my market. So I called like 20 of them, and literally first five hung up on me because they asked me a question the question is basically to see if you're legitimate, if you're a real
Yep.
buyer. And I didn't even know what to answer because I didn't know. I really didn't. So I practiced on a different market, on different brokers, and then got my reps in. And when I started calling Texas and started calling Kansas City, I already knew all the objections. I already knew what they're gonna ask me. I had my pitch, I had my team ready, I had everything ready. So by then, everything got incredibly easier because I got my reps in, and I got to practice on somebody in a different market.
I
So
love that. And you can do that in a whole bunch of different things with sales or negotiation, just in that safe zone, negotiating a discount for your Starbucks or for your oil change. Just very, very safe zones where there's no penalties. And it's not really going to affect you, as you learn. But so you're doing that in other markets, and that way you're a little bit more experienced when you go into the market that you really want to be in. I love it.
well, yeah, because people will be like, "Oh yeah, I know that Vlad. He doesn't know anything," But that was back in the day. Of course, now things changed, and as you get more experience, you get more confidence. You know what you're talking about, and mind you, the community is so tiny. Everybody knows everybody.
Yes.
And the funniest thing is, I was just speaking on a panel in the Hilton Hotel, and I was interviewing Matt Puccini, and and he's talking about loan assumptions, and he's speaking and giving an example how he sold a property just recently in Northeast Dallas to another team, and another team assumed his loan, and he didn't say the name, but he said Northeast Dallas, 419 doors, and he even kind of hinted on the rate, and I kind of interrupted the whole panel, and I turned to him and I say, "Hey Matt, are you talking about McCallum Communities?" And he's like, "Yeah, how do you know?" He's like, "Because we bought it." And the whole audience, like 200 people, just dropped and started clapping. Their mouth just like opened. They're like, was this like planned? We're like, no, it wasn't. I didn't know Matt was the seller. I really didn't. So it's a really, really tiny community, and everybody knows everybody. So when you speaking with brokers and you drop a couple of names here and there, people who you work with or who you heard of or saw on Zoom calls, events, on anywhere, they'll already know that you know what you're talking about, you in the space, so they'll take you more seriously.
Yeah, yeah, and that's also a good reminder to keep your integrity on the high and do what you say you're going to do, because uh yeah, word travels fast, and the last
Sure.
thing you want to do is get blacklisted early in your career.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing because people know people it's a tiny community. If you think about it, there's a handful of very large operators, especially in the Texas market. And then of course there's multiple others, but everybody knows everybody. And we all network at the same events. We go to the same brokers, same lenders, same cost segregation professionals. And, I can name a cost seg guy, and I'm sure 99% of multifamily operators will know him. So it's a very small world.
Love it. All right, well, these next few questions, as we close it out, I ask every guest that comes on the show. First one being, if you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
Yeah, I would rip that PlayStation out of the wall. And I was like, what are you doing? Stop wasting your time. Read books. Stop watching TV. Read books. And most importantly, don't be afraid to take action. I was really afraid to get out of my comfort zone. And that's exactly what you need to do. So learning how to be uncomfortable and being comfortable at being uncomfortable, that's where you have to be. So I would tell younger self, get out there as much as possible and start educating. I would never imagine that I would be self-employed or owning real estate or anything like that. So I would just give myself some advice and just go for it. Don't be afraid. Just go for it.
Love it. What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
Yeah, when it comes to books, I'm actually reading 3 books now. One is The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Very good.
And why I'm reading those books, because I think I'm in the stage where I have to focus. You can buy things, you can grow, but at the same time, well, I'm trying to be a business person, right? I am a business person. So you have to change your thinking, you have to change your mind. So for that, you need to change your focus and go deep on what you're doing. Instead of spreading yourself too thin, concentrate on what you're really good at and delegate. So one of the things is with The One Thing by Gary Keller. Another one, I'm a huge fan of Benjamin Hardy. He's written Who Not How and Be Your Future Self. And his new book, it didn't come out yet, but I had an opportunity to read it. It's 10x easier than 2x. So he's talking about eliminating 80% of the busy work, quote unquote, and concentrating on 20% that's going to grow your business tenfold. So that's exactly what I'm working on now. So please read The One Thing and also Be Your Future Self. It really kind of puts your mind at that perspective where put yourself 20 years ahead. Now bring it back to right now. What do you need to do now to be that like that person in 20 years? So it's a really interesting concept. He explains it better. Well, he's a doctor. So.
Love it. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Last 5 years. I would say few. I'm not going to say one. It's a combination because I started them at the same time. So I block out my day. So I'm very focused when it comes to blocking out the day. So in the morning when I wake up, meditation, journaling to kind of get stuff out of my brain and put it on a piece of paper, yoga, and exercising. So all those 4 things I started at the same time. I don't know what weighs more, what works more, but I'm doing all these things. So basically before 9 a.m., and I know it's late. I know people wake up at like 4 and do these at 4 in the morning. I'm not a super morning person, even though I shouldn't say that. I know it's kind of a cliche type of thing, but I don't like, I go to bed at 10:30. I wake up, I don't know, 6. So before 9, I do all these things to prepare my mind. Additionally, even if you do one exercise or journaling, you already accomplished something that early in the day. It already
start the day off with a win.
yeah, it sets your mind right. It sets your day right. You'll be like, you know what? it's 8 a.m., it's 7 a.m. I already accomplished something. I already accomplished two things. So these are the things that really helped me: exercise, yoga, meditation, and journaling.
Love it. How can people reach out to you?
Oh, I'm all over social media. I'm Vlad Arakcheyev. There's not many Arakcheyevs out there. So I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm about to start my YouTube channel. I'm all about education. I'm thinking back to that conference where all these people were just giving back and teaching and saying, hey, listen, you can have this. If you want to be passive, be passive. That's perfectly okay, but be in it, because it's a really, really cool vehicle to build wealth, build passive income, and of course, taxes. So it's a huge opportunity. So I'm out there basically screaming and saying, take a shot, take an opportunity, vet your partner, vet your the operators, of course, and ask a question. Just ask a question, be curious, and it's going to be 100% better. I guarantee it.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Vlad. It was good having you on, and look forward to checking out your YouTube channel once you launch that. And yeah, hopefully we can connect at one of these upcoming events soon.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting. You know what I'm doing? You ready? One last second. Not all real estate. My passion is motorcycles as well. So I'm going to do real estate and motorcycles.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, you're getting niche, and I mean, there's so many ways you could do that. Like I'm big into fitness, so I'm starting to weave a little bit more of that into my stuff. So I love it. So for the motorheads out there, I'm sure they'll really connect with you.
I know. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you got any value out of this at all, please like, comment, subscribe, follow. I'd love to hear from you. And for more real estate related content, market observations, upcoming events, you can go to investedx.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. I promise you won't regret it. Thanks again.